Welcome back to the channel, guys. We're going to talk about one of my favorite bass lures of all time, and that is the Keitech Swing Fat Impact. This is such an effective bait, especially for smallmouth, but it works for all species of fish. There's a million ways to fish it, but today we're going to talk about the simplest method, which is simply just a ball head jig with your Keitech on it. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of today's video. We're going to talk about the gear you need to throw this, how to fish it and where to fish it, and hopefully we'll catch some big fish along the way. So let's talk about some gear and then let's get to fishing. This segment was supposed to be out on the water as well, but my camera actually went for a swim while we were out there filming today's video. So we're gonna have to film it on my phone and make do with a little bit until I can get a new camera in and be able to get back into my regular content, so bear with me. In today's video, I was fishing with a Kistler KLX 7-foot medium heavy rod, and I was using their Series 2 reel in a 7:1 gear ratio. You could use a 6:3:1 as well. I just like to reel this bait as slow as possible, but they usually eat it and swim at you, so I like to have a fast gear reel to pick up on it. And then I was fishing 12-pound fluorocarbon on mine. I like to fish it on a bait caster when I'm fishing around a little bit of cover, like rocky bottoms or it has trees or anything down there, just to try and get those fish up and away from the cover instead of them getting buried down in there. But if you don't want to fish it on a bait caster, you can also fish it on a spinning rod. I've done it thousands of times. I usually do it up on Lake Erie where it's a lot more open water, nothing for them to snag you up on. And what I'll do is I'll use just a 7-foot medium spinning rod with 15-pound braid. This used to be lime green braid. It's kind of faded and I'm gonna get some new ones for next spring, but I like the lime green braid so you can tell when your bait's on the bottom. And then I'll put about a 10-foot, 8-pound fluorocarbon leader on the end of it and you'll be good to go. This is a Shimano Sedona 2500 size reel. And that is my setup for fishing these swim baits, whether I wanna use a spinning rod or bait caster. When it comes to bait selection, I exclusively fish the Keitech Swing Fat Impact swim baits. These are easily the best ones on the market for this technique. I know there's some other ones out there like the Bass Pro Speed Shads, I think. They just don't have the same softness of plastic, so they don't swim the same. You can use them and you will catch fish, but you'll catch more if you go to a Keitech. Just because they're a little bit softer. Now for size, this is going to depend on the type of bait or the size of the bait that you're fishing around. So if the bait's really small, I've used a 2.8 before. My #1 size, especially for smallmouth, is the 3.3, and then I'll go up to even the 3.8, or if you have some bigger shad in the area, you can go to a 4.3 or even a 4.8. I know they get bigger, but this technique really tends to fish well with the smaller Keitechs, that 2.8 to 3.8 range. Then when you're picking out a jig head, I pour my own, and if you want to see a video, I'll leave a link down below on how to do this and save money, but you can also buy some. Gamakatsu makes a really, really good one. They're $5 for 5, so they're about $1 a jig head. All these jig heads is just a plain lead head jig. This is the simplest technique ever. I'm just using a ball head here, plain lead, and a small hook, like a 1/0 or a 2/0 is about as big as I go. I don't go bigger than that because then your hook will get way back into your bait here and kill the action in the tail. You want this hook to stay up close to the head of the bait, just like that, maybe halfway back, no more than that. And then for size, I use a 1/4 ounce 99% of the time, anything from 5 to 15 foot of water. Anything less than that, I'll go to a 1/8. And anything deeper than 15, I'll go all the way up to a 3/8 to make sure my bait gets down there, because you want this bait to stay on the bottom. When you're picking out a color for your swim bait, very simple on color selection. I use the white color or French pearl whenever the water is dirty, and then if I have clear water, I'll use a color to match whatever the bait fish are. This is ayu, so if they're feeding on sucker minnows or chubs, that works really well. Electric shad works well around shad. You can get perch color. Any type of minnow or bait fish they're feeding on, Keitech will make a color to mimic it. So let's show you how to rig one of these up real fast. It's a super simple technique just because there's 2 components and I use a little bit of super glue to get the bait to stay on the hook. All I do is bring my jig head, I'll center it right in the bait here, as close to center as I can get it. I'll go right down the middle and feed the bait around the hook shank, making sure there's a line on the back of the bait, making sure to keep your hook on the line in the middle there. I'll bring it about halfway around like this and I'll pop it out on the middle of the hook shank, and you'll see I'm up to the bait keeper now. I'll feed it up the bait keeper, and just about before I touch the head, I would take a drop of super glue and drop it right inside there. I'm not gonna do it on this one because this is just for the demonstration, but once you do that, it'll keep your bait on there so much longer than if you just pushed it up on the hook shank, just like that. Now all you wanna do is make sure that your bait is straight all the ways and it's not kinked in any way. This will give it the most natural swimming action and make sure you catch the most amount of fish while you're out there on the water. And real quick, before we head out on the water and fish this bait, let's talk a little bit about where you want to fish it. Essentially, I use this bait as a search bait and a finesse bait in one. You can continue to catch fish once you find them with this bait, but it's very easy to find fish with this bait because you can cover a ton of water. I will fish this anywhere over expansive flats of water, but typically I try to find rock piles or current breaks on a river or any type of like a point or rock pile in a lake that these fish will congregate on, and I will cover the area with fan casts across a point, let it sink to the bottom and drag it slowly across all areas of the point or the current break until you find where the fish are. Like I said, we're going to talk more about that in the fishing segment. So let's head out on the water, toss this thing around, and see if we can catch some fish today on the Keitech swim bait. So when I found my area that I want to fish my swim bait in, what I like to do is just fire cast out there wherever I want it to land in that current break like I just did there, and I will feed it a little bit of line and let it sink straight down to the bottom. I want this thing on bottom at all times. I want it to make contact with the bottom, and you'll see that once I get it to leave the bottom, there's one, oh, he came off. Once this bait comes off the bottom, I will engage my bail like this and feed it more line to let it get back down to the bottom, or after I like lose a fish, and then I'll just slowly start my retrieve again and try to make it, I'll reel as slow as I can to make sure it stays on the bottom at all times. And that is where the fish are, so that will give you the best chance of getting a fish, just like that. And I think this is a good one too. Yeah, it's a big one. Ooh, you almost threw my new rod in the lake. Like I said, just like that, you want to make sure it's bouncing along the bottom at all times, making sure you're in the strike zone where the fish want to be and where they want to eat, and you'll get fish just like that. So while these Keitechs will bounce off the rocks really well and tend to be pretty snag free, you are fishing with an open hook, and like I said, you will lose some of them, but it is okay because they're very inexpensive. All you have is a plastic and a jig head, and those are pretty cheap in the end of the day compared to like losing a crankbait or a jerkbait or something down there in those rocks. So they're just like that. You get another one. Don't be afraid to fish it down there in those rocks, and make sure you're putting it where the fish actually live so you can get as many bites as possible, just like this. And that's another good one. Come on, buddy, get up in here. And make sure you super glue your swim baits to your jig head so they stay on. You can catch fish after fish just like that. Save you a lot of money in the long run. One of the great things about this Keitech swim bait is it is such a simple technique to fish. Literally anyone can come out here and do this. You can take your kids fishing with this bait, your girlfriend, whoever. If they have no experience fishing whatsoever, they can still fish this bait and catch fish. All you have to do is tell them cast it out there, reel it in nice and slow just like we've been doing, and they'll catch fish just like this. And it's such a versatile bait. You can put it on a variety of different techniques, but today we're just using it on a little ball head jig because we're fishing for smallmouth, and this is probably one of my favorite smallmouth baits of all time if these fish catches haven't shown you that yet. Just like that, we got another one. And honestly, I think the best part of this Keitech is that it's a search bait and a finesse bait in one. That one just ate it on the fall, and if you find fish, you can continue to catch them on the Keitech. You don't even have to switch. You can literally find them with this bait, cover a ton of water, and catch them over and over and over again off the same spot and not have to get out a Ned rig or a drop shot or anything like that. You can just keep reeling them in one after another, fishing a moving bait and having a ton of fun while you're out there fishing on the water. So I hope today's video helped you learn how to catch a bunch of fish on a Keitech swim bait. This is such a simple technique to fish. Anybody can do it. I've said it 1,000 times in today's video, I'm sure, but I'm serious. Anybody can do this technique and catch a ton of fish just like this. So if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like down below, and thanks for watching.